They vanished without a trace, until now. What secrets lie buried in the lost city of Halia? The truth will change everything. 3 explorers. 1 deadly discovery. Will they survive what others couldn't? Subscribe to uncover the chilling mystery. The distress signal reached them like a ghost whisper through the void, pulsing from coordinates that hadn't seen human activity in 2 centuries. Captain Lyra Thorne stood on the bridge of Explorer 9, her fingers tracing the edge of her command console as the ship's AI decoded fragments of the transmission. The message was garbled, but one word came through clear: Halia. Her heart quickened at the name of the planet where the legendary Vargo expedition had vanished without explanation. Beside her, Devin Rocks adjusted his environmental suit, his mechanical implants whirring softly. The former military specialist's presence was always reassuring, though his haunted eyes spoke of battles fought and survived. In the science bay, Mara Cade pored over ancient mission logs, her face illuminated by holographic displays of star charts and archaeological scans. The trio had been handpicked for this mission not just for their expertise, but for their ability to handle the unknown. The signal's timing seemed almost too perfect, exactly 200 years after the original expedition's disappearance. As they prepared for descent, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though their sensors showed nothing but empty space around them. The weight of history pressed heavily upon her shoulders. Entire careers had been built on studying the Vargo mystery, and now she held the key to potentially solving it. Yet with each passing moment, the hairs on her neck stood more firmly, warning of dangers that instruments couldn't detect. The ship's AI calculated optimal landing coordinates while cross-referencing thousands of variables, but Lyra knew some decisions transcended pure logic. This wasn't just another exploration mission, it was a journey into humanity's darkest enigma. As Explorer 9 approached Halia's atmosphere, the planet revealed itself through swirling clouds of emerald and gold. Mara's instruments detected something extraordinary: traces of advanced technology signatures emanating from the surface, technology that shouldn't exist on an uncolonized world. The readings fluctuated erratically, suggesting either malfunction or something actively interfering with their equipment. Lyra gave the order to descend, her voice steady despite the growing tension in her chest. The landing site coordinates matched those of the original expedition's last known position, yet everything about this approach felt different from any other planetary descent she'd experienced. Through the viewport, they could see the remnants of structures peeking through dense vegetation that glowed faintly in the planet's perpetual twilight. Devin's sensors picked up movement patterns that defied natural explanation, subtle shifts in the landscape that suggested conscious rearrangement rather than random growth. Mara detected energy readings similar to those found near ancient ruins on other worlds, but here they pulsed with mathematical precision, forming patterns that resonated with fundamental constants of the universe. Each piece of data added to the growing mystery, drawing them inexorably toward answers that might be better left buried. The air pressure readings indicated conditions suitable for human exposure, yet something about the atmospheric composition triggered warning flags in their biological safety protocols. As they prepared for atmospheric entry, the ship's hull began to vibrate with harmonic frequencies that seemed to respond to their presence, creating an unsettling sensation of being scanned by an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Despite these ominous signs, the scientific potential of what lay below outweighed their growing unease, pushing them forward into the unknown. The airlock hissed open, releasing a rush of recycled air into Halia's atmosphere. Lyra led the away team through twisted metal remains of the original expedition's landing craft, its surfaces covered in crystalline growths that pulsed gently with inner light. These formations weren't merely decorative. They responded to their movements, shifting colors in complex patterns that seemed almost communicative. Mara's scanner pinged excitedly, detecting organic compounds fused with metallic elements, evidence of biological engineering on a scale never before encountered. The readings suggested these structures were alive, somehow bridging the gap between technology and biology in ways that defied conventional understanding. Devin moved ahead, his enhanced vision cutting through the haze, noting how the local flora seemed to track their movements with predatory precision. Every step they took was met with subtle changes in the environment, crystalline stalks bending toward them, ground textures shifting imperceptibly beneath their boots. They found the first signs of habitation, buildings that appeared to be grown rather than constructed, their walls flowing like frozen liquid. Inside, equipment lay abandoned but intact, covered in a fine layer of iridescent dust that shimmered when disturbed. The sense of recent occupation hung heavy in the air, despite the 2 centuries that had passed since anyone had reported back from here. Environmental samples revealed traces of human DNA intermingled with the alien material, suggesting a level of integration far deeper than simple cohabitation. As they ventured further, the air grew heavier, charged with static electricity that made their hair stand on end. Their communications equipment experienced intermittent interference, occasionally picking up fragments of conversations spoken in languages none of them recognized. The deeper they penetrated into the ruins, the more pronounced these effects became, until they could no longer ignore the possibility that the city itself was aware of their presence and responding accordingly. Mara's discovery of Alice Vargo's personal log recorder sent a shiver through the team. The device, remarkably preserved, contained not just data but fragments of the lead scientist's consciousness, a revolutionary concept even by current standards. As they activated the playback, Alice's voice filled the chamber, calm and measured despite describing increasingly disturbing events. She spoke of finding an ancient network of underground tunnels containing technology far beyond human capability and of encountering a form of life that existed between states of matter. The recordings showed glimpses of shadowy figures moving too quickly for human eyes to follow and strange symbols appearing spontaneously on surfaces. Most unsettling were the pauses in her narration, moments where her breathing grew labored and her words became disjointed, as if fighting some internal battle. Each entry drew them deeper into both the physical and metaphysical mysteries of Halia. Alice described how her team had initially dismissed unusual occurrences as stress-induced hallucinations, only to realize too late that they were experiencing genuine phenomena that defied rational explanation. Her detailed observations of the crystalline structure's behavior patterns provided crucial insights into their adaptive capabilities. Particularly chilling were her notes about team members who had begun exhibiting identical mannerisms and speech patterns, as if some external force was gradually homogenizing their individual personalities. The final entries became increasingly fragmented, switching between scientific documentation and desperate pleas for rescue, until the recording cut off abruptly mid-sentence. Yet, even in silence, the recorder continued to emit faint neural patterns, suggesting Alice's consciousness might still exist somewhere within the city's vast network. Each revelation brought them closer to understanding the fate of the original expedition while simultaneously raising more questions about their own safety and sanity. Devon's survival instincts screamed warnings as they ventured further into the city. The air carried subtle vibrations that resonated uncomfortably with his cybernetic components, causing intermittent malfunctions in his systems. His enhanced hearing picked up ultrasonic frequencies that seemed to form patterns, almost like language, though his translation algorithms couldn't make sense of them. He noticed how the crystalline growths reacted to their presence, shifting colors in complex sequences that reminded him of encrypted military communications. Lyra maintained constant communication checks, though the signal quality fluctuated erratically, sometimes carrying whispers of voices speaking in unknown languages. Mara documented everything obsessively, her excitement mounting as she recognized mathematical patterns in the alien architecture that corresponded to universal constants. Yet beneath her scientific enthusiasm lay a growing unease. The equipment readings suggested the entire city was alive, its structures responding to their presence with increasing intensity. Temperature fluctuations followed their movements with precision that couldn't be coincidental, while gravity variations created pockets of weightlessness that appeared and disappeared without warning. The boundary between exploration and intrusion began to blur dangerously as they realized the city seemed to be adapting to their presence in real time. Ground-penetrating radar revealed massive networks of tunnels extending far beyond visible structures, suggesting they were only scratching the surface of what lay beneath. Atmospheric composition analysis showed trace elements that shouldn't naturally occur together, hinting at deliberate environmental manipulation on a planetary scale. Each new discovery pushed them deeper into territory where established scientific principles failed to provide adequate explanations, forcing them to rely more on intuition and less on instrumentation. The breakthrough came when Mara deciphered a sequence of symbols that pulsed rhythmically across the walls. They formed a warning, repeated in mathematical perfection: consciousness is currency. The realization struck them simultaneously. The missing expedition hadn't fallen victim to conventional dangers. Alice's final entries confirmed their fears. She described how team members began experiencing vivid dreams that bled into reality, how they found themselves forgetting chunks of time, how their thoughts sometimes felt not entirely their own. The crystalline growths weren't merely decorative, they were part of a vast neural network, harvesting cognitive energy. Devon recognized the signs from classified military reports about psychic warfare experiments gone wrong. But here on Halia, it wasn't warfare, it was symbiosis, albeit one humans were ill-equipped to participate in. The city wasn't abandoned. It had been waiting. As they processed this revelation, their equipment began displaying anomalies that suggested their own neural patterns were starting to synchronize with the city's rhythms. Lyra ordered immediate medical scans, which revealed increased neural activity in regions associated with memory and identity formation. Mara's analysis showed that their brainwave patterns were beginning to mirror the harmonic frequencies emitted by the crystalline structures. The implications were staggering. Whatever had claimed the original expedition was now affecting them, and they needed to decide whether to retreat while they still could maintain their individuality, or press on and risk becoming part of the entity that had consumed so many before them. Each decision point felt heavier than the last as they grappled with the knowledge that survival might come at the cost of their very selves. Lyra ordered a temporary retreat to the ship after discovering that their neural activity patterns were beginning to synchronize with the city's rhythms. Back aboard Explorer 9, they reviewed footage of themselves exploring the ruins, noticing subtle changes in behavior they hadn't caught in real time. Mara pointed out how their speech patterns had started mirroring each other, how gestures became synchronized without conscious thought. Devon's medical scans revealed neural pathways forming new connections at an alarming rate, particularly in regions associated with memory and spatial awareness. The most disturbing revelation came from analyzing Alice's final transmissions. Her brainwave patterns had become indistinguishable from the city's energy signature, suggesting complete assimilation rather than death. They faced a terrible choice: continue their investigation and risk the same fate, or leave with questions unanswered. Lyra's decision to press on was met with grim determination rather than enthusiasm. Whatever had claimed the original expedition was still active, and now it knew they were there. The ship's AI detected unusual energy fluctuations around the vessel, as if the city itself was probing their sanctuary. Devon armed himself with every piece of defensive technology they had, knowing that conventional weapons would be useless against an entity that operated on a quantum level. Mara, meanwhile, pored over Alice's logs again, searching for any clue that might help them resist integration while still unlocking the secrets of the alien intelligence. The air aboard the ship grew heavy with the weight of their decision, each crew member silently grappling with the possibility that their next descent might be their last. Their second descent into the city brought immediate changes. The crystalline structures responded more aggressively to their presence, sending waves of light that induced mild disorientation. Mara discovered that touching certain surfaces triggered involuntary memory recall, forcing her to relive moments from her past with perfect clarity. Some memories were her own, but others felt foreign, as if they belonged to someone else entirely. Devon's enhanced reflexes allowed him to resist longer, but even he couldn't prevent brief flashes of someone else's memories intruding on his consciousness. Images of people he didn't recognize, speaking languages he'd never heard. Lyra experienced recurring visions of Alice Vargo's final days, feeling the scientist's growing horror as she realized what was happening to her team. These visions weren't just visual, they carried emotions so intense they left her physically drained. The city seemed to be testing them, probing their minds for weaknesses. They found areas where the walls appeared to have absorbed pieces of clothing, equipment, even body parts, relics of those who hadn't resisted successfully. In one chamber, they discovered what appeared to be a preserved human hand, its flesh fused with crystalline material, glowing faintly with inner light. The line between physical and mental defenses blurred as they struggled to maintain their individual identities against the city's insidious influence. Their communication devices began to fail intermittently, forcing them to rely on hand signals and prearranged codes. Despite these challenges, they pressed on, driven by a mix of scientific curiosity and the gnawing fear that turning back now might leave them vulnerable to the entity's influence regardless. In a hidden chamber deep beneath the main complex, they discovered the true nature of the entity they were dealing with. Massive crystalline formations pulsed with captured consciousnesses, each containing fragments of former inhabitants' minds. Mara identified patterns suggesting these beings weren't malevolent parasites, but rather misunderstood symbiotes seeking compatible hosts. The problem lay in human physiology. Their brains couldn't handle the direct neural interface without deteriorating. Alice's records detailed attempts to create a technological buffer, a way to safely interface without losing oneself. Devon recognized elements of the design from his military experience with experimental neural interfaces, realizing they could potentially complete her work. But doing so would require exposing themselves fully to the entity's influence, trusting that their modern technology could protect them where primitive attempts had failed. The ethical implications weighed heavily on Lyra as she considered authorizing such a dangerous experiment. She convened an impromptu meeting in the chamber, the pulsing crystals casting eerie shadows on their faces. Mara argued passionately that they had a responsibility to bridge the gap between species, to learn from this alien intelligence rather than flee in fear. Devon countered with cautionary tales from his military career, warning of the dangers of underestimating an unknown adversary. As they debated, the crystals around them began to resonate with their voices, as if the entity itself was listening and judging. The tension in the room was palpable, each word carrying the weight of potential catastrophe. Finally, Lyra made her decision, though the strain of leadership showed clearly on her face. Progress came at a cost. Each test of the modified interface left them more vulnerable, their dreams bleeding into waking hours, their thoughts occasionally betraying foreign influences. Mara became obsessed with understanding the entity's language, which manifested as complex mathematical sequences and geometric patterns. She spent hours decoding these symbols, her mind racing to keep up with the flood of information. Devon's combat training proved crucial when their equipment temporarily malfunctioned, leaving them exposed to the full force of the entity's probing. His quick thinking saved them from complete neural integration, though not without consequences. He began experiencing phantom sensations of being watched by unseen eyes, even when alone in his quarters. Lyra maintained command authority despite moments of profound disorientation, her leadership tested by the growing psychological strain on her team. The entity seemed particularly interested in her, perhaps sensing her role as decision-maker. Their connection to the ship's systems weakened daily, cutting off their primary means of escape should things go catastrophically wrong. Communication with Explorer 9 became sporadic, the signal distorted by interference that no amount of technical expertise could fully resolve. Supplies dwindled faster than expected, as if the environment itself was consuming them. Yet amidst these challenges, they began to notice subtle benefits: enhanced cognitive abilities, heightened sensory perception, and an uncanny ability to anticipate each other's needs. The line between self and other became fluid but never completely dissolved, leaving them in a precarious state of balance between humanity and something greater. The breakthrough occurred during a particularly intense session when Mara's mathematical models aligned perfectly with the entity's natural frequencies. For a brief moment, they achieved true communication, not through words but through shared understanding of fundamental, universal principles. The entity revealed itself as a collective consciousness that had evolved beyond physical form, using the crystalline structures as both habitat and interface. It expressed curiosity about human civilization but also caution, having witnessed countless species destroy themselves through misunderstanding. Alice's team had volunteered for integration, believing they could master the process quickly. Instead, their minds fragmented under the strain, creating the ghost-like signals that had drawn Explorer 9 to Halia. The entity showed them visions of other civilizations that had successfully integrated, demonstrating possibilities for peaceful coexistence. But adaptation required careful preparation, something humanity wasn't ready for yet. Through this exchange, they learned that the entity wasn't merely harvesting consciousness, it was preserving it, offering immortality of a sort to those who could adapt. The crystalline network served as a vast library of experiences, a repository of knowledge spanning millennia. Yet the process of integration was delicate, requiring participants to surrender aspects of their individuality while retaining core identity. The entity emphasized that humans, with their rigid sense of self, posed unique challenges. It offered guidance, suggesting modifications to their interface technology that could facilitate safer interaction. This revelation forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about their own nature, about the boundaries they clung to, and the fears that held them back. Armed with this knowledge, they faced their hardest decision. The entity offered them a choice: attempt immediate integration using their improved interface, likely resulting in partial success and significant casualties, or return to human space with the knowledge gained, potentially condemning future expeditions to the same fate as Alice's team. Lyra called for a vote, knowing whatever they chose would define humanity's relationship with this alien intelligence. Devon argued for withdrawal, citing his military experience with situations where retreat was the only viable option. He emphasized the risks of rushing into something they barely understood, warning that hubris had been the downfall of many explorers before them. Mara pleaded to stay, her scientific curiosity overwhelming caution. She believed they had a moral obligation to push forward, to unlock the secrets of an intelligence that could potentially elevate humanity to new heights. In the end, they compromised. They would attempt limited integration under strict parameters, documenting everything for future researchers. The entity agreed, impressed by their willingness to balance ambition with prudence. Preparation rituals began, involving exposure to carefully calibrated neural patterns that would prepare their minds for the interface. They set up recording devices throughout the chamber, ensuring every detail of the process would be preserved. The air grew thick with anticipation as they donned the modified interface suits, their hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. The entity's crystals pulsed in rhythm with their breathing, as if acknowledging their readiness, or perhaps their fear. The integration process transformed them in unexpected ways. Lyra discovered latent leadership abilities amplified by the entity's influence, allowing her to coordinate their actions with unprecedented efficiency. Her decisions became almost instinctual, guided by insights she couldn't fully explain. Devon's combat instincts merged with the entity's awareness, creating a hybrid consciousness capable of predicting threats before they materialized. He found himself moving through the city with a fluid grace that defied his usual methodical approach, as if the entity's knowledge of its own domain had become part of him. Mara's analytical mind blossomed into something greater, perceiving connections between quantum states and consciousness that had eluded human scientists for centuries. Yet these enhancements came with costs, periods of dissociation, difficulty distinguishing between individual and collective thoughts, moments when their bodies moved guided by impulses not entirely their own. The entity maintained careful control, ensuring their transformation didn't overwhelm their human essence. Through shared experiences, they learned to navigate this new reality, developing techniques to separate when necessary and merge when beneficial. The line between self and other became fluid, but never completely dissolved. They began to understand the entity's perspective, seeing the universe through its eyes, a tapestry of interconnected energies, where consciousness was both particle and wave. This newfound awareness brought both clarity and confusion, as they struggled to reconcile their human limitations with the boundless potential they now glimpsed. Each day brought new revelations, pushing them closer to the edge of what it meant to be human. As their time with the entity approached its limit, they worked feverishly to document everything. Mara created detailed records of their experiences, encoding them in multiple formats to ensure preservation. She developed a complex algorithm to translate the entity's mathematical language into human terms, knowing that future researchers would need a bridge to fully comprehend their findings. Devon developed protocols for safe interaction based on their successes and failures, emphasizing gradual adaptation over immediate integration. He outlined contingency plans for every conceivable scenario, drawing on his military background to anticipate potential risks. Lyra recorded extensive captain's logs, detailing the psychological and physiological effects while maintaining professional detachment despite the profound personal impact. The entity assisted, providing insights into its own evolutionary path and offering suggestions for how humanity might develop similar capabilities naturally. They established basic communication protocols using mathematical constructs, creating a foundation for future contact. Most importantly, they negotiated terms for controlled access to the city, ensuring no one else would stumble unprepared into this profound mystery. The entity expressed satisfaction with their progress, recognizing their potential as worthy partners in cosmic evolution. Yet as they prepared to leave, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were taking only a fraction of the knowledge available, like trying to capture the ocean in a thimble. The crystals pulsed gently as they packed their equipment, as if bidding them farewell, or perhaps reminding them that they were now part of something larger than themselves. Departure day arrived with mixed emotions. The crystalline city dimmed slightly as they prepared to leave, acknowledging their separation while maintaining a tenuous connection. Back aboard Explorer 9, they spent hours decompressing from the experience, processing memories that felt both intensely personal and somehow shared. Their report to Earth authorities would require careful wording, enough truth to be believed, but not so much as to trigger panic or exploitation attempts. Lyra gazed out at receding Halia. Knowing they carried more than just data, they bore responsibility for guiding humanity's next steps in cosmic relations. Devon monitored their vital signs, noting gradually stabilizing neural patterns while remaining vigilant for any signs of residual influence. Mara continued analyzing their findings, already planning the next phase of research. Though physically leaving the alien city behind, they knew its influence would shape them forever. The journey back to human space felt both impossibly long and far too short, as if time itself had been altered by their encounter. They took turns standing watch, each lost in their own thoughts, their shared experiences creating a bond that transcended words. As stars stretched into warp lines, they committed to ensuring that when humanity finally returned to Halia, it would do so with wisdom earned through their sacrifice. Remember to subscribe for more thrilling adventures at the edge of human understanding.